Hey adventurers, welcome back to the channel. If you're an American with a passport burning a hole in your pocket, you might think the world is your oyster. But hold up, not every country is rolling out the red carpet for Uncle Sam's citizens. Today, we're counting down the top 10 countries where Americans are not welcome and why. From political tensions to outright bans, we've got the juicy details. So, grab a snack, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive in. Starting with number 10, Saudi Arabia. Now, this might surprise you because the US and Saudi Arabia have a long-standing alliance. Think oil deals and military partnerships. But don't let that fool you into thinking it's an easy vacation spot for Americans. Historically, Saudi Arabia was super restrictive about who could enter. Until 2019, you could only visit for business, religious pilgrimages to Mecca, or if you had family there. Even now, with their shiny new tourist visa, Americans often feel like fish out of water. Why? Strict cultural norms, like no public drinking, modest dress codes, and heavy surveillance, clash hard with the American vibe. Plus, political tensions over human rights issues mean locals might not always greet you with open arms. It's not a ban, but it's definitely not a warm hug either. At number 9, we've got Cuba, a Caribbean gem just 90 miles from Florida, yet it's a tricky spot for Americans. Back in the day, the US slapped a trade embargo on Cuba in 1958, and that made tourism a no-go. Fast forward to today, and while things have loosened up a bit, Americans still can't just hop on a plane for a beach vacay. You need to fit into one of 12 specific travel categories, like educational trips or supporting the Cuban people. And even then, you're dodging businesses tied to the Cuban military. Locals have mixed feelings too. Some love American visitors, others see you as a symbol of decades of tension. It's not impossible to visit, but the red tape and lingering Cold War vibes make it less than welcoming. Coming in at number 8 is Russia. This one's no shocker. Relations between the US and Russia have been frosty since the Cold War, and it's only gotten icier lately. Think Ukraine conflicts, election meddling accusations, and sanctions galore. Americans can technically visit, but the visa process is a nightmare. Lengthy applications, hefty fees, and a lot of scrutiny. Once you're there, don't expect a warm welcome. Many Russians see the US as the big bad wolf of geopolitics, and that sentiment trickles down to tourists. Add in warnings from the US State Department about arbitrary arrests, and you've got a recipe for a chilly reception. Pack your parka and your patience. Number 7 takes us to Venezuela, a country in turmoil. This South American nation used to be an oil-rich hotspot, but now it's a mess of economic collapse, crime, and political unrest. The US and Venezuela have been at odds for years. Think sanctions, accusations of meddling, and a broken diplomatic relationship. The US Embassy in Caracas shut down in 2019, leaving Americans with zero backup if things go south. Locals often view Americans with suspicion, blaming US policies for their woes. The State Department's Level 4 Do Not Travel warning cites kidnappings, violent crime, and wrongful detentions targeting Americans. It's not a no-entry sign, but it's close. At number 6, we've got a curveball, Bhutan, the tiny Himalayan kingdom known for its gross national happiness. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, not so fast for Americans. Bhutan isn't hostile, it's just super exclusive. They've got no US embassy, and the only way in is through a government-approved tour operator. You're looking at a minimum daily fee of $200 to $250 just to exist there, plus a visa process that's more controlled than a VIP guest list. Why? Bhutan wants to protect its culture and environment from mass tourism, especially from countries like the US that love to leave a big footprint. Americans aren't unwelcome because of politics, they're just not the priority guest. Number 5 is Myanmar, a Southeast Asian beauty turned danger zone. Since a military coup in 2021 sparked a brutal civil war, this country's been a no-go for Americans. The US government's got a Level 4 travel advisory up, warning about violent unrest, wrongful detentions. Americans aren't specifically targeted, but the chaos doesn't care about your passport. Healthcare's a mess, and the military junta isn't exactly sending out welcome baskets. Before the coup, Myanmar was opening up to tourists, but now, it's a hard pass unless you're a thrill seeker with a death wish. Landing at number 4 is Yemen, a country with a rich history but a terrifying present. Caught in a devastating civil war since 2014, Yemen's a hotspot for terrorism, kidnappings, and violence, especially against foreigners. The U.S. Embassy closed in 2015, so if you're American and get into trouble, you're on your own. Locals don't necessarily hate Americans, but the U.S.'s involvement in regional conflicts like backing Saudi-led airstrikes hasn't won any fans. The State Department says, "Do not travel," and they're not kidding, some even suggest drafting a will before you go. Yemen's not saying, "Stay out," but it's definitely not saying, "Come in," either. Number 3 brings us to Iran, a land of stunning culture and serious U.S. baggage. Decades of hostility think the 1979 hostage crisis, nuclear disputes, and sanctions mean Americans aren't exactly on Iran's BFF list. You can visit, but it's a hassle. You need a travel authorization number, a government-approved guide shadowing you 24/7, and a visa that takes forever to get. Locals might be curious or even friendly, but the regime, not so much. The U.S. warns of arbitrary arrests. Sometimes Americans get detained just for being American. It's not an outright ban, but it's a proceed with extreme caution situation. At number 2, we've got North Korea, the Hermit Kingdom. This one's a biggie. Since 2017, the U.S. has banned its citizens from traveling here after the tragic death of Otto Warmbier, an American student detained and returned in a coma. Even before that, visiting was a nightmare. Mandatory guided tours, no wandering, and constant surveillance. North Korea's government sees the U.S. as its arch-enemy, and that's not just propaganda, it's policy. Americans who've slipped in via third countries in the past faced insane risks: arrest, interrogation, you name it. It's not just unwelcoming, it's a locked door with a keep out sign and neon lights. And number 1, we have Syria. If there's a country where Americans are least welcome right now, it's this war-torn nation. Over a decade of civil war, terrorism, and instability have made Syria a literal danger zone. The U.S. Embassy's long gone, and the State Department's Level 4 advisory is screaming, "Do not travel." Why? Kidnappings, violence, and extremist groups that see Americans as prime targets. The visa process is a nightmare too. No Syrian embassy in the US since 2014, so you'd have to beg a third country for approval. Locals are too busy surviving to care about tourists, and US involvement in the conflict only adds fuel to the fire. Syria's not just unwelcoming, it's a place where stepping foot could be a one-way ticket to disaster. There you have it, folks. The top 10 countries where Americans aren't welcome and why. From political beefs to outright bans, these spots remind us that travel's not always smooth sailing. What do you think? Would you still risk a trip to any of these? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe for more travel truth bombs. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next video.